this is Sarah, and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video, I'm going to show you how to crochet a necktie collar that will work for any size dog or pet or even child. I originally designed this for Maximo, my Chihuahua, to wear as a photo prop, and I had people ask me if I could make them for their babies, for photos, and for larger and smaller dogs, cats, bunnies, goats, and even miniature horses. So it's a great adjustable pattern, and it's really easy to make, and I think you're really going to enjoy making one of these for your pet. Now this is a free crochet pattern on my blog, and I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. What you're going to need to make a necktie collar is 2 colors of worsted weight number 4 yarn. For today's demonstration, I'm going to be using Red Heart Super Saver. It's a great yarn to use anytime you're making something for a pet because it's sturdy and washable. I'm going to be using this teal and this beige for my collar and necktie. It doesn't take very much, and of course the amount will vary depending on what size you're going to make. You're also going to need a button because this is a button-on collar. I don't always put buttons on my dog collars, but I really liked using a button for this one, and I'm going to use this round teal button. And you're going to need a button that's about 3/4 of an inch. And the other thing you're going to need is a tape measure. And you'll need this to measure the neck of the animal that you're going to be making this for, because you want it to be loose and comfortable. We're going to be stitching today with our H hook. And this H hook is an H8, which is a 5.00 millimeter crochet hook. And then you'll also need a needle because we're going to be making the tie separate from the collar, and we'll need to stitch that on. We'll also need to weave in our ends and sew on that button. And then of course the last thing you'll need is your scissors. We're going to begin from the point of our tie and work our way up, and then we'll stitch around our tie, and then next we'll make the collar, sew them together, and then add the button. So I'm going to begin with a slip knot, and then I'm going to chain 3. I'm going to begin stitching in the second chain from the hook. Here's our first chain, here's our second, and I'm going to place 2 single crochets in the second chain from the hook. So I'll put my hook in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops. And I'll do that again. I'll chain 1 and turn my work. Now, the chain 1 here and throughout this whole project does not count as a stitch. It's just a turning chain so that our work lays nicely. For row 2, I'm going to place 2 single crochets in each of those 2 single crochets. So I'll go in the first one and I'll stitch 2 single crochets. Then I'll go in the next one and stitch 2 single crochets. Chain 1 and turn. Now for row 3, we're not changing colors yet. We're going to stitch 2 single crochets in the first single crochet. 1, 2, then we'll stitch 1 single crochet in the next 2, and then we'll stitch 2 single crochets in the last one. So now we have 6 single crochets, and you can see the little point is starting to form. We're not going to chain 1 yet because we're going to change colors, and now we're going to be changing colors every 2 rows. So I'm going to grab my beige yarn, join that in, and I'm going to leave my till yarn connected because we'll be adding it back in every other row, and when we're finished we're going to be stitching a row of single crochet around the little tie, so it's not going to matter. When you're changing colors, always do your chain 1 after you've changed colors. Alright, now for row 4 we're just going to place 1 single crochet in each of these single crochets. And we're going to start right in that first one because our chain 1 did not count as a stitch. So I'm stitching 1 single crochet in each of the 6 single crochets. Chain 1 and turn, and then I'll repeat that. 1 single crochet in each single crochet across. So now we're back where we changed colors, and we're going to change back to our teal. So we're just going to grab it up, join it in, snug it down, and do not cut off your second color. Chain 1 and turn. And now we'll repeat what we did with the beige color. We'll stitch 2 rows of single crochet, stitching 1 single crochet in each of the 6 single crochets. Chain 1, turn, 1 single crochet in each of the single crochets. Alright, let's repeat what we did and add the brownish tan yarn back in, snug the blue one down, chain 1 and turn. Alright, so let's do this again. 1 single crochet in each single crochet across, chain 1 and turn, and repeat. So we're going to continue repeating 2 rows, alternating 2 rows, until we reach 17 rows, which makes a very nice size necktie. We've got 3 here, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 rows, alternating every other 2 rows with our colors, and it makes a nice size for a small to medium dog. If you want to make it longer, just add more rows in if you're making it for a bigger dog or a pet. So let's continue on, alternating every 2 rows with our 2 colors. Now you can make it in solid, or you can use variegated yarns, or you can do lots of different colors. It's up to you how you want to do a necktie. There we go. join our beige back in. And I wanted to show you the side over here because we're only changing colors on this one side, not the other, because we're doing 2 rows. And that's the way that it will look. You'll have those little lines of yarn where you carried it up. And then when we get the tie finished, we're going to put a row of single crochet around, and so those will be covered and you won't see them. And that just keeps it so we don't have to weave in all the strings every other row. Just helps it stay neat and tidy. Alright, so I'm going to continue stitching my rows, 2 rows of each color, alternating back and forth until I reach 17 rows. I've stitched my 17 rows. I'm going to change back to my blue color and chain 1. And on this next row, row 18, we're going to stitch the first 2 single crochets and the last 2 single crochets together. And so what we'll do is we'll put our hook through the first single crochet and pull up a loop. We'll put our hook through the second single crochet and pull up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook instead of the 2 because we went through 2 stitches. We're going to yarn over and go through all 3 of those stitches. We're going to place a single crochet in the next 2, and then we'll stitch the last 2 together. So we'll do it again. We'll go in, pull up a loop, go in the next one, pull up a loop. We'll have those 3 loops, yarn over, and go through all 3. Chain 1 and turn. You'll have 4 single crochets because we stitched the first 2 and the last 2 together. And this is going to give that little indentation on our tie. So for this row, we're going to place 1 single crochet in each of these 4 single crochets. Alright, so now we're going to join our beige yarn back in, snug it down, chain 1, and turn. Get that blue one out of the way. There we go. Alright, so now we want it to flare back out because it's the top of the tie, the bow part of the, or the knot part of the tie. So what we're going to do is we're going to place 2 single crochets in this first single crochet. Then we'll place 1 single crochet in the next 2. And then we'll stitch 2 single crochets in the last one. 1 and 2. And that's given us that shape where it went in and then coming back out so that it looks like the knot at the top of the tie. Chain 1, and see, now we're back to having 6 single crochets. And so I'm stitching 1 single crochet in each of those 6 single crochets. And see how it came in and then it went back out. So it looks like that we tied a knot at the top of our necktie. Alright, so let's pull our blue, our teal, or whatever color that you're using back in, chain 1, and then we'll just stitch 2 rows of stitching 1 single crochet in each of those 6 single crochets. chain 1 and turn, and like I said, 1 single crochet in each single crochet across. All right, now at this point we're going to stitch a row of single crochet all the way around the outside of our necktie, and you can decide which color that you want for your trim and cut off the other one. I'm going to take the beige off and I'm going to do mine in the teal. Alright, so we're just going to begin with a chain 1 and we're going to stitch down the side of the tie. And so what we're going to do is place 1 single crochet in the end of each of the rows. So we'll go ahead and put one up here. One in each of the end of the beige row. And when you're working down the side where we have the yarn that we carried across, make sure that you grab those yarns and stitch around them, because we do not want them to show. But if you try to stitch 1 single crochet in the end of each row, it ends up looking really nice. And you'll see that that side goes in a little bit to give the shape of the tie. And we just work our way down the side. Make sure to grab those sides. And when you come across your ends, just move them out of the way and we'll come back and weave those in later. That's where we brought in our beige, and then we'll have this teal one down here at the corner. Now, when you get to this bottom corner, you want to make sure that you put 3 single crochets right in the bottom, and that's going to give it a nice point so that it looks like the point of the necktie. Alright, now we're going to work our way back the other side, back up to the top. Remembering to place 1 single crochet in the end of each row. I stitched up this second side, and I want you to remember to put 3 single crochets in the corner of the tie at the top so that it eases around nicely. We'll single crochet across the top of the tie, and then we'll place 3 single crochets in the next corner. Right in there. 3 single crochets, 1, 2, and 3, just so that it eases nicely around the corners and lays nice. And then we're going to stitch a slip stitch and tie off. And what I want you to do is to leave yourself a good amount of yarn, because we can use this when we tie it on to our neck portion. Alright, so what I do is I cut my yarn nice and long. I'm going to go behind the next stitch, put the loop on it and pull it to the back, and then tie off. And it just makes the front look nice. And there's our tie. We need to weave these ends in here, here, and here. Don't weave this one in because we're going to use that long one to sew it on. So we'll just grab our needle and make sure when you're weaving in, you're staying within the color, going through stitches, even yarn fibers, so that it stays put. Go one way, back the other, and then try to go, there we go, pull a little bit, back the other way, and then snip it off. And I'll go ahead and weave these two ends in, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to adjust the neck so that it can fit any size dog. So here is the tie portion of our collar. I've got it all tidied up, and of course I've left this piece of yarn here so that I can use this to sew it onto the collar that we're getting ready to make. Now the collar on this one measures about 1.5 inches, and if you want your collar to be thicker, because maybe you're doing this for a larger dog or pet, you can add more chains to make it thicker. Alright, so let's get started. We're going to make our slip knot, and then we're going to chain 4 chains. Now remember, if you want to make it thicker, just add more chains. We're going to stitch a single crochet in the second chain from the hook, and a single crochet in those next 2 chains. Chain 1 and turn. And the chain 1 does not count as a stitch, it's just a turning chain. We'll go right in that first single crochet and stitch a single crochet, and then 1 in the next 2. There we go, didn't want to go in that last one. Chain 1 and turn, and this is the way that the collar will be stitched. Chain 1, turn, 1 single crochet in the 3 single crochets. Chain 1, turn, 1 single crochet in each of the single crochets. Three rows equal 1 inch. I'm going to be stitching 30 rows because Maximo's neck is 9 inches, and I always add an extra inch for comfort. So I'm going to stitch a collar that is 10 inches long. So I need to stitch 30 rows because 3 rows equal 1 inch. And you'll need to do that for your dog or pet. Stitch the length that you need by their inches. And I do suggest that you add that extra inch for comfort because this is a decorative collar and it will lay on their neck on top of their existing collar. And you want it to be comfortable for them to wear. So we're just going to repeat this for 30 rows, or for as many rows as you need for your dog or pet. Chain 1, turn, 1 single crochet in the 3 single crochets. Chain 1, turn, and repeat for as many rows as needed to fit your dog. I've stitched my collar for as long as I need it for Maximo's neck. Now, I made this in a solid color. You could stripe it the same way that we did for the tie if you would like to, or not. I decided not to. I like the solid. Alright, I'm going to cut my teal yarn, and I'm going to join back in my beige yarn, and then chain 1. And now we're going to stitch a single crochet edge down the side, across the bottom, and then back up to the top, and then we'll form our buttonhole for our button. So we're going to do this the same way we did when we went down the side of our tie. We're basically just going to stitch a single crochet in the end of each of the rows. And this will give our collar a nice even edge for our tie. So I'm just going to work down the side until I reach the end. And we need to make sure that we put 3 single crochets in each of the 4 corners of our collar so that it lays nice. I single crochet down the side, and now I'm at the first corner, and I'm going to put 3 single crochets in the corner. And we do this so that it eases nicely around the corner without any pulls or bumps, and just makes for a nice corner. Get that string out of the way there. And I'll do the same thing in this corner. 1, 2, and 3. And then I'll just start working my way back up to the other end of my collar. But see how that makes that lay nicely when you do those 3 in each corner. It makes it like really nice. Alright, I'm going to work back up to the other end of our collar and then show you how to make the buttonhole. I stitched my single crochets up the side. I'm going to place 3 single crochets in this corner. I'll put single crochets across the top. And then I'm going to join to this first single crochet with a slip stitch and chain 4. Alright, now we're going to turn and join that over here to the corner in that center of those 3 single crochets that we added with a slip stitch. We're going to chain 1 and turn. And this made our buttonhole. And what we're going to do is we're going to stitch 5 single crochets in that buttonhole. And this just makes it so that we can get the button in and out of it. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And it looks like this. And then we're going to join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch and tie off. And again, let's go to the next stitch down, grab that loop, pull it to the back, and tie off to the back. And that's the way the end should look with the buttonhole. And here's our collar. Now we have a little bit of weaving in to do, and I'm going to tidy this up, and then I'm going to show you how to sew the tie on to the collar. I tidied my collar all up, got all my ends all woven in, and now we're going to show you how to sew on your necktie. Now, you don't want to put it exactly even, because when you button it, it gets off just a little. I kind of set it to this side just a smidge, so, but it doesn't really matter. They slide around on the dog anyway. Alright, so we're going to thread that needle. And if you want to pin your tie in place, you can. I just hold it. And I try to make sure that I just go up and down around the edge of that trim so that my yarn isn't completely visible by using the same color as my trim edge on my tie. And I just do up and down stitches because remember, this has to stretch just a little bit as your dog is wearing it. So we don't want the stitches to be too snug, I guess you should say. You want them to be snug enough to stay in place, but also you want them to have just a little bit of play so the dog can stretch it as it wears it a little bit. Plus, I think it would be a lot more comfortable. Alright, so I stitched across the top. I'm going to stitch down the side. And then I'm going to turn it over. And I just make some whip stitches underneath like this, just to help it stay in place. And then I just tie off while I'm back here. There we go. So now my tie is where it needs to be, and I always try to line it up right underneath that edge of the single crochet so it fits just like that. Alright, so the last thing that we need to do is to sew on that button. So here's my button. I'm going to thread my needle again. Now remember, your tie goes this way, so you want your button right here. Okay, so what I do is I go ahead and I make a loop like that. My button right where I want it. And then I make a few stitches. And you want to make sure it's on there good, because, you know, the dog might be pulling on it a little bit. And also, you want it to be on there snug so they can't bite it off. Alright, let me pull that loop where we started with to the back side. And then I go ahead and tie a nice tight knot to keep that button on good. And then I like to do, let me get this out of the way, a knot that I do like this. I kind of wrap it using both strands. There we go. And if you're worried that this knot's going to come undone, you can use a little of the fabric glue or fray check, or even dab it with a little dab of hot glue. But I've never had any of them ever come undone. So there's the button in the buttonhole. And here's our tie. Now these are great for photos, for your pets. They're great for holidays. You can make them in all the different colors for the different holidays, and even add an applique if you want to. It's just a fun little collar to make. And I always make lots of collars with flowers and ruffles and lace. And my friends were like, you need to make one for the boy dogs too. And so this is my necktie collar for the boy dogs, and even the girl dogs if they want to. That will work for any size, dog or pet.